Canon just announced the RF 100 to 300mm f2.8 L series image stabilized USM, the successor to the EF 300mm prime, giving you more reach than the 70 to 200. It lets professionals get super smooth background blur while the subject pops, making it ideal for indoor sports, the Olympics, theater work, fashion, and even pro-level video. But will it cost you an arm and a leg? Details coming up, but first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe, share, choose all notifications, like, comment, and all that stuff. It's greatly appreciated. It doesn't cost you a cent, but really does help this channel grow. Photojournalism, pro-level video recording, fashion, indoor sports, the Olympics. The 100 to 300mm f2.8 is designed for the R system for cameras like the R5, but will be perfect for the Canon EOS R1 when it's released, in time for the Paris Summer Olympics coming up in 2024. In Canon's mind, this is an upgrade over the 300mm f2.8 prime, taking it to a zoom lens, aimed squarely at professionals. Canon also makes a point several times stating that this lens is designed for high-end video recording, but it's also aimed at customers that find the 70 to 200 being lacking, having insufficient background blur, or where 200 to 400mm lenses lack sufficient low-light capabilities, providing too much noise for professional high-end stills or video work. The 100 to 300mm f2.8 is perfect for theater work with its silent operation paired with the R5 or the R3, indoor sports like hockey, basketball, and swimming. But where I think this lens is really going to shine is the upcoming Paris Olympics in 2024. It's designed for any indoor venue where you're just not going to have enough light. It's designed to give you that perfect bokeh, making the subject jump right out of the frame, wide open at f2.8. In Canon's marketing materials, they stated many times that this lens is designed for video, but not just video. They made a specific point of saying pro-level video. The only question I wonder is, because I don't have the lens, and while I do have the 100 to 500mm here, when we get to the price, talking about the 100 to 300mm, unless I get about 100 people pre-ordering using my link down below, this 100 to 300mm is so far out of my reach. But wow, to be able to shoot indoors, this has an f4.5, which is just not good enough for indoors. The level of detail you're going to get to be able to shoot video at f2.8 indoors with this, you're going to get professional level results. You're not going to get any noise. It's just going to the subject is truly going to pop out of the frame with this thing. The 100 to 300mm f2.8 is solidly designed. It's weather sealed, and it has Canon's optical image stabilization with 5.5 stops of correction, or 6 stops if you include the image stabilization from the camera's internal image stabilization. And its weight? It weighs just under 6 pounds at 5.8 pounds. While it's heavier than the 300mm prime, Canon points out that it's the lightest 100 to 300mm zoom on the market. Like the 100 to 500mm RF lens that was released last year, the 100 to 300mm f2.8 can be handheld or used on a lightweight monopod. It produces incredibly smooth results when shooting handheld. This video here was shot handheld on a moving boat using the RF 100 to 500mm, and this gives you an idea of what can be expected in terms of image stabilization from this lens. However, that foot is an optional extra, adding to the price of the lens. Canon states that the 100 to 300mm f2.8 works with their extenders, the 1.4 and the 2 times. This is the 2 times extender. I can't speak. You know what it is? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. That's why I can't speak. It's great that it works with the extenders, but in a way I wish it wouldn't, because just think about the power of this lens, f2.8, indoors, 100 to 300mm, the sharpness, the ability to separate the subject, to get the subject to pop right out of the background with that super smooth bokeh. Put an extender on. Now this is a 2 times extender, but even if you put that 1.4 times extender on, you lose f2.8. You're now getting yourself up to f4 or beyond. And then what's the point of this lens? You might as well strap on the 100 to 500mm for a considerably lower price. This thing sells for around $28.99. And we'll get to the price of the 100 to 300mm in just a moment. Another thing with extenders is you reduce the sharpness and the detail. I certainly wouldn't shoot. I wouldn't pop this 2 times extender on. I'd go with the 1.4, but if you're having to strap that on, if you're having to do that, ask yourself this question: is the shot going to be worthwhile? Most people using this lens are going to be professional high-end users for Sports Illustrated or other purposes where the shot has to be perfect. Put an extender on and the shot is no longer perfect. Put an extender on and essentially what you're doing is you're getting yourself a 100 to 500 millimeter f4.5 to 7.1. And well, you could have bought that already instead of pre-ordering the 100 to 300 millimeter. So as far as extenders go, don't put one on the 100 to 300 millimeter. You're gonna lose that fast open f2.8, and you're gonna lose. Well, you're not gonna lose. You're gonna gain some noise. The lens expands and improves upon the 70 to 200, giving you that further reach. And it expands upon that 300 millimeter prime, opening up, giving you as far as 100 to 300 millimeters. But this lens is designed for professionals. It's not designed for the ordinary filmmaker and photographers. It gives you sharpness. It gives you buttery smooth background, separating the subject from the background, allowing you to shoot indoors in low light situations. And it does so for a price of $9,499 US. And the lens hood is an extra $650. A lens cap, if you need it, is $25. Now, we don't know if these are actually included with the purchase price. Sometimes they do with a 100 to 500 millimeter. I got the lens hood with it, but if you do have to replace them, those are the prices. But there is no mention of the price of the foot. I want to talk about this lens for a little bit. I know I'm going to see this in the comment section down below. A lot of people saying, are you crazy? $9,400 for a lens like this? I mean, even the 300 prime, the EF version, I think was for around, what, $6,100? But we got to consider the marketplace here. This is designed for a very specific segment, a very popular segment for professionals, for television, for magazines, for anybody that is covering the Olympics, for anybody covering indoor venues, where you need to be able to shoot at f2.8, where you don't want any background noise, where you're shooting swimming at the Olympics indoors. Can you imagine just getting these shots where the subject is completely separated from the background, giving you that nice blur, giving you that professional Sports Illustrated cover shot? That's where this lens comes in. And for $9,500 or more, depending on where you live in the world, this lens is going to be very powerful. It's going to give you that result. And for a lot of people that are in this space, they're not even going to look at the $9,400. They're going to look at, where can I pre-order this? How can I get this right now? And if you do want to pre-order this lens, use my links for B&H and Adoraba down below, and you can pre-order this lens now. But I would go ahead and pre-order it right now because I'm absolutely surprised at the level of demand for this lens. When I put out a video a couple of weeks back talking about the 100 300 millimeter, I was completely surprised by the response. I got far more views than covering the 35 millimeter f1.2, or even when I covered the 50 millimeter f1.2. In fact, looking at all the lenses I've covered on this channel, this is the one where the views have simply exploded. There's a huge amount of interest in this lens, and I understand that if you like that Sigma 120 to 300 millimeter, the Sigma just doesn't even compare. The performance of the autofocus system, the sharpness, the detail. This lens here, it's designed, it's aimed at professionals. Now, the 120 to 300 millimeter, that's aimed at somebody like myself that would love this 100 to 300 millimeter f2.8, but just can't afford it. $9,400 US. That's probably like $15,000 Canadian. That's right up there with the price of the 800 millimeter prime and the 1200 millimeter prime. Although the 1200 millimeter prime is about twice that. I would love this lens. When I'm shooting my son doing karate, when I'm shooting indoors, again, indoor sports, I wish I could have this lens. And the only chance I could have at having this lens is if, I don't know what, 100 people pre-ordered using my links down below, maybe 50. I don't know what the number is, but I do know that for me at this point where my channel's at, it won't produce enough revenue. It's either getting this lens or the R5 Mark, or the R5 Mark, I can't speak, or the R5 Mark II and the R1 together. That's what I'm looking at. The budget I have set aside, the funding I have set aside for the R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1 would be completely blown if I buy this lens. And what would I use it for? Well, probably just a few scenarios, like my son doing karate. But boy, would it look really good. But do I need it? No, I definitely don't. It's one of those big wants. The results I get with this 100 to 500 millimeter are very good. And even though I get some noise, for the rest of my family watching it, they couldn't care less if there's a bit of noise. And see, that's the difference between pros and amateur users. A little bit of noise, no big deal. If the autofocus isn't bang on every time, not such a big deal. We can deal with that. We just take plenty of video so that way when we get back to post, we've got the shots we need. And that's why we'd really love to see Sigma and Tamron producing lenses in this space, because a price of $9,500, while a very, very solid lens, a very good lens and highly recommended for professional users is not something that's even remotely affordable for the ordinary average filmmaker or photographer. But a lens around $1,000 to $2,000, a Sigma lens, and that we might have a few trade-offs, not having the same focal range, not having the exact same quality in terms of the bokeh, in terms of the autofocus capabilities. Yeah, that would be good. But this is all about a professional grade lens. So if you're upset about the price of it, certainly go ahead and put it in the comment section down below. But most likely my response is going to be, this lens is designed for professional use, for high end, for those covering the Olympics, for equestrian sports, any sort of sports where it's being shot indoors and not outdoors. Because if you're shooting outdoors, then the 100 to 500 millimeter is my recommendation at a fraction of the price, $28.99 versus $94.99. And that's the difference. When you get to the bleeding edge, when you're pushing the sharpness, when you're pushing autofocus, when you're pushing the weight, again, handheld, like for example, this thing here, I can't remember the weight of it, but it's ridiculously lightweight. When I was shooting my son doing his karate stuff, I'm shooting handheld, and most of the times I'm shooting at 100 millimeters, but quite often I was going to 200 or 300 millimeters, and the stabilization in this lens is absolutely terrific. And I can imagine with the 100 to 300 millimeter, we're going to get that same level of performance. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest news and rumors regarding all the major camera brands and lenses and accessories, well then go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications. By choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one, you'll get notified. Just make sure you check your spam and junk mail folder, because a lot of times these notifications come in there. And this video, I'm shooting it at 4 o'clock in the morning. Whenever the news comes out, 24/7, even though I'm a one-person show, I'm covering this news. Even though I have a day job, I cover the news, so that way you don't have to wait more than a couple of hours. In fact, most of the times, you don't even know there's been an announcement when, hey, there's an alert for a video coming up. And if you're looking for all the minor news and rumors, well, all those tidbits, all those news and rumors that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, well then follow me on my Twitter channel, because I'm always putting out constant tweets every day about the news there. So for everything else, for all the major camera brands, for all the minor camera brands, for all the minor news and rumors, follow me on Twitter and you'll get updates there. Also, notifications of pre-orders. So before I shot this video, I went ahead and tweeted you can pre-order from B&H and Adorama. So whenever there's a deal, whenever there's a pre-order, I'll put that out on Twitter first. And if you do pre-order this lens, thank you so much. It really does help this channel grow. The income I get from that goes back to supporting, and that's what's allowing me to purchase the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1 when they come out. And maybe someday, look, if you're going to purchase the 100 to 300 millimeter, and you're probably going to get tired of it in maybe 2-3 years or whatever it is, consider reaching out to me, offering to sell it to me, because I think the only way I can afford to purchase the 100 to 300 millimeter f2.8 is as a used lens. I would really love to have that lens. It's on my roadmap. I put it there because when I see the results here, even though I'm ordinary, even though I'm a regular father, brother, son, I look at this lens and I think, wow, you know, do you remember when you were a kid and you put like Ferraris on your wall or Lamborghinis or other cars? Well, that's how I feel about this lens. It's right up there. It's not within reach, but it's attainable if I work hard, and maybe that's another reason to keep working really hard at this channel. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you again soon.